All right, here we go again. Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another season of Design and Manage, City Skylines 2 edition. Today we will be creating a brand new city from scratch, and we will be aiming to make it not only functional but also aesthetically pleasing. So let's get started. So I've actually thought a little bit about it, and we are gonna go with the Great Highlands map. I've already selected it. It has all the infrastructure and connections that we need, and I also have a rough idea of what I want to do. So let's go with that. I'm gonna name the city as unnamed for the time being. So no mods, very different from the last city that I've built, Melody Island, where I had the unlock all and unlimited money mods. And we're also not gonna go with the tutorial. So let's get started. So this map, I believe, has a lot of potential. It has a total of 3 rivers crossing it from one side to the other, giving it a lot of space for pristine real estate next to the shorelines. There's a lot of flat land, which is great to build stuff. So what I'm thinking is we can start building our town over here at the starting square, of course, and also make our initial industry. This is all going to be low to medium density, and as we progress towards this island and towards the river, we can increase the density and make our main downtown towards this area, or perhaps even over here as well, because we have this piece of land that extends to behind the mountain, and this is of course going to be the ideal location for a harbor, marinas, and all that kind of stuff. The map also has a couple of islands, which could be useful for creating some stuff, and 2 big mountains, which are actually amazing as well. For default map standards, these actually look great. The only downside with this map, I believe, is the railroad, which is particularly far away from the starting area. So we'll have to progress a little bit in the development of the city before we can start thinking about that network, but other than that, I think we have a lot of potential here. As for natural resources, the game, just like every other default map, is rich in a lot of natural resources, but I've also installed the Extra Landscaping Tools mod, which will allow me to create my own natural resource spots. Now, as for the starting area, the game or the map is very peculiar because it has an extra highway connection that extends all the way to the north side. I don't think I'll connect it right now to the initial road layout because I don't really like this road, so I think I'm gonna rebuild it later on. But I am, however, gonna use this one because it's the only access point to the city at the moment. And we need to start thinking about services or utilities. I think that's the most important part at this stage. So for water, the current goes or flows towards this direction, towards the sea. So the sewage outlet or the poop chute will have to be placed somewhere at around this location. And I think we can place it right now. So perhaps we can place it right around here on this corner. Now this is only temporary. I don't think I want to pollute this area. I think I want to keep the water on this river pretty clean, so in the future I'm gonna unlock the water treatment plant and replace this poop chute or sewage outlet, but for the time being this is what we have to work with. Then as for water sources, the most efficient one is always the water pumping station. So if you have a water source, this is usually ideal. So that's what I'm gonna place for the time being, even though I might replace it for a water tower, because for this type of density here, especially if I decide to add some farms, perhaps a water tower might be more appropriate, aesthetically wise. But for the time being, I think I'm gonna put the water pumping station at about perhaps right here. on this particular mountain. Actually, no, it doesn't look very well. Maybe over here. Okay, cool. Now, as for power, I usually like to go with the wind turbines, but this area is not very windy, even though I could potentially put some wind turbines over here. I could also go with a small coal power plant, but this area is way too small for that. I don't think I'm gonna commit to this type of energy source. And before going for the wind turbines, I actually think this is a good location for it. But before committing to it, I think for the time being I'm gonna stick with regular power importing from outside the city. So I'll have to extend the power line all the way over here, which is going to be somewhat costly. So let's bring the power line all the way over here. Perhaps we can go behind the poop chute and bring it towards this area. Okay. And of course I'm going to put a transfer station over here, and perhaps this can also be the initial layout for our industrial site. The wind is blowing towards this direction, so if this area gets too much pollution, it can contaminate the residents over here, but I'm planning on keeping this industrial site fairly small, so I'm not really worried about that at this stage. But without further ado, I think we can start planning the road layout. This area is particularly hilly, especially next to the river and next to the shoreline, so I need to be mindful of that. But I think for the time being I can simply extend this avenue. I think I'm going to delete a roundabout for the time being. There we go. And I think at around this location we can start curving. Like so, and extend the avenue towards this direction. Now I also need to think about a way to connect the industrial site that's going to be over here to the town itself, which is going to be built on this site, on this very large area. I could potentially turn this into a four-way interchange, but at this stage I don't think an infrastructure of that size is justified, so I'm going to go with a very simple connection. I'm going to go with a 4-lane road, and I'm going to make a tunnel that's going to go right below the avenue. And we can extend the avenue all the way here. That's going to give us a secondary grid that we can use to complement this existing one. Thus, instead of having a boring and squarish grid, perhaps we can make a combination of two different grids. It will make the whole thing much more interesting. Cool, and we can start doing our industrial layout. Perhaps we can start with that. I don't want to keep things too complicated at this stage, so I think I'm going to make a road perpendicular to the avenue. That will be the main access point towards the industrial site. And then perhaps we can curve it at around over here, just to give it a little bit more character. Okay, and perhaps we can cut it off here. Okay, so that's going to be one part of the layout. And then we can continue with some alleys. This is definitely something that I haven't been exploring in my past cities. The combination of different types of roads, thinner roads, namely alleys, to complement the road layout. This layout is going to be particularly small, so I'm going to place one road over here and extend it towards this side as well. I think I'm going to extend the avenue all the way over here, just to future-proof this area, because I know I'll probably want to continue extending the industrial layout towards this site. And perhaps we can also wrap this road around the tunnel and connect it back to this road. So let's do that. Okay, cool, and now we can use this road to make our transfer station at around this location. So let's delete this power line and continue the road all the way here. And we can put our transfer station right about, you know what, I think I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna make a perpendicular road over here, like so, and I want to put my transfer station in this direction instead. Okay, and now we can connect it. There you go. And I think I'm actually going to continue this road all the way over here. We are not going to build anything in this side, but it kind of simulates a maintenance road that could be used to do some maintenance on these power cables and also on the sewage outlet. So I think I'm gonna first and foremost transform both of these roads into dirt roads. Perhaps this one can continue and keep being a paved road, but this one I think I want to go with a dirt road. And of course we also need to connect the poop chute to the main road infrastructure. Do not forget about that, otherwise it would be very, very bad. Okay, I've also made this small access road. I think it makes the whole thing a bit more realistic. You know, this little access road all the way to the sewage outlet. Now I just need to adjust a little terrain to make it better looking. Now I'm pretty much done with industrial layout. Now we can move on to the town or the residential layout. And the first thing that I need to worry about is how to connect both of these avenues together, how to connect the industrial site to the residential. And I'm thinking I want the connection happening as close to the intersection as possible, because if I build it too far away, you know, an avenue connecting both of these avenues together, and I have some development over here with roads intersecting both roads, there's a risk that cars can take the shorter path or the shorter roads to go to the industrial site and vice versa, and going in between the houses, which is something that I do not want. Okay, and I'm gonna make roundabouts on both of them. Okay, cool, and now I think we can move on and start working on the layout itself. And as I've mentioned, I'm gonna make roads that are parallel to both of these avenues. I'm gonna use the direction of both of these avenues as a reference for my grid, and I'm gonna try and make things as interesting as possible. I will be mostly using the 2-lane roads, but I also want to mix in some alleys here and there. And for the grid itself, I don't want to go too wide. Usually in the past, what I would do is make a road that would go 120 meters, thus leaving a gap in between. And this allows for full-sized housing, which are 6x6. But I think I want to go a little bit smaller than that for this area. This is going to be a starter area, and homes are supposed to be small, so a grid this big doesn't make sense. So I think I'm going to go, and instead of making 6x6 houses, I think I want to go 4x4. And to make a 4x4 grid, I think this is the distance that I need to have. Yeah, there we go. So we can make a couple of roads here that follow these principles, and hopefully we will be able to make something that looks good. So I'm gonna work on the road layout, and I'll meet you guys shortly when I have something that I am proud of, or at least satisfied with. While the time-lapse is rolling, I would like to take a chance to speak a little bit about this upcoming series. If you haven't been around the channel for long, Design and Manage is kind of my staple type of series. That's what made my channel somewhat popular back in the days of good old City Skylines 1. And the goal is pretty much simple. It's a basic Let's Play series where I try to make a good looking and aesthetically pleasing city while also paying attention to the functionality of the city and also paying attention to the core gameplay mechanics, how the economy works, etc. The last time I've done this type of series, it was, I believe, 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I have, of course, made other series after that, but not in the same model of Design and Manage. I'm not an urban planner in real life, so most of my series are not super realistic. I tend to use geometric shapes and patterns in my builds and in my playstyle, and I do tend to combine them with realistic elements that you would see in real life. Ultimately, I try to create cities that are interesting and pleasing to look at. That's basically the gist of it. Overall, I am doing well myself, I am enjoying life, and I know that I haven't been active in the past few months, as life has been very busy for me. And in fact, it just became busier because I have very recently became a father of a little girl, so now I'm even more busy than before. But at the same time, I'm also very excited to start this new city and to make content on it to share on YouTube with you guys. And I know some people will ask if I'm going to continue my past series, namely the circuit board city that I kinda left hanging. I might do a couple of videos of it in the future, but I think I'm going to focus my efforts on a brand new city because that's what I'm mostly excited about. There's also a lot of things that came out to the game since I've last played, which I'm interested in trying out. And I feel like starting fresh is the best option, not only for me, the way I enjoy playing the game, but also for most of you guys. And with this, the initial road layout is complete. I'm pretty satisfied with the outcome. Now it's only a matter of time to see if it works with traffic management. This area is not going to be very densely populated, so I'm not really concerned about that. I'm mostly going to put low density commercial, residential, and perhaps mix in a little bit of medium density as well next to the avenues. So I think this is going to work out pretty well, but only time will tell. But yeah, I tried to make it interesting and aesthetically pleasing. I think it looks very well, very good. And now I think it's time to start zoning finally. Oh, and by the way, I also added some vegetation. At the moment, it kind of makes the roads a little bit harder to see, but when we have buildings in between the roads, I think it's gonna look very good, especially because there are some areas that are purposefully large, so that there's gonna be empty spots in between, the zoning, and that's where the trees are mostly gonna pop. And these bigger areas are also suitable to put some larger assets, such as the elementary school or medical clinics or wherever kind of buildings the city demands. But yeah, with that said, I think we can start zoning. So perhaps we started the roads on the industrial layout, so perhaps we can start with that and work on the zoning on this side as well. So I think I'm gonna go and zone some small assets. So I think I'm gonna zone some 4x4s or 4 long buildings. I think I'm also gonna zone on this road as well. It doesn't really matter. And on this block, for example, I think we can zone this particular area. And this area as well. These ones can be a bit larger. And these factories can be slightly larger, I suppose. So I'm trying to mix in different sizes of buildings. And hopefully we'll get a good variety of sizes. You know, different types of factories. I think that's gonna make this whole thing look much better and unique. Okay, now let's move on to this area. I think I'm gonna start with a commercial here. And yeah, I'm using the European theme. That's the default theme for this map. But I think we can mix in different types of buildings just to make the whole thing look, you know, very diverse. For this area, I don't think I want to zone nothing next to this intersection because this is going to be the main traffic source for the industrial site. But perhaps we can put some buildings over here. So let's start with some North American style shops. And we can mix in different types of density. Now let's put in some commercial as well, or some European commercial. And I suppose we can mix in some houses as well. So let's do that. Okay, so to control where the zoning happens, I think I need to let the simulation run and let these buildings develop and spawn before zoning anything here. And this is just to guarantee that the buildings that I zone are exactly 4 blocks long. Not gonna keep this rule religiously, not gonna have every single building 4 block long, but for this area in particular, I need to control the length. So I think we have everything ready to start the simulation, so I'm just going to resume and let everything develop. Okay, so the city is growing very nicely. We have a nice amount of residential already, and we still have a lot of demand for more. And because we have a significant amount of layout already prepared, now it's just a matter of time of keep zoning. But before progressing and doing just that, there are some things that I need to take care of. So as you might notice already, we have people complaining about the lack of a cemetery, so that's something that we need to take care of. But before doing that, let me just take a look at our taxes. So we're losing still a lot of money. And one of the things that we can do is go into the water and sewage service and set everything to 50%. because the amount of water that we're producing is way too much for the amount of population that we have. So at the moment we are producing 26,000 square meters and we're only consuming this, so this is just a tactic to get to the green area as soon as possible. Electricity we're importing, so there's no point in removing these, and roads I'm not gonna touch for the time being. We have a lot of services available already to start putting in the city. Nowadays it's much harder to maintain a healthy and profitable city, especially at the start, so I'm not going to put every single one of these. So for example, garbage is pretty much dismissible. As long as we have a higher connection, we can export our garbage. As for healthcare, people will soon start complaining of medical clinics, so that's something that we need to take care of. And as for the crematoriums, I need to pick which one of these I want to put. In general, the crematorium is much cheaper to upkeep. It's 22,000 a month versus the 27,000 and a half of the cemetery. But we have a lot of room for a cemetery over here. So perhaps I think this type of building would be the most suitable for this area. And I'm thinking perhaps over here, centered with this square. I could scoot it a bit to the side, but it wouldn't be centered with this square, with this piece of layout, and that would bother me a lot. So I think I'm going to center it with this particular layout instead. So right about here. Okay, and I think it looks much better. I just need to adjust the terrain because I think that, yeah, that created some unnecessary slopes that we can easily fix, or at least disguise with the terrain tools. Now we just need to level it. Now the hearses should start go pick up the dead people, which is a relief. And we already have some people complaining about healthcare. But we are losing a lot of money, so I don't think I'm going to put a medical clinic because that is, well, that's 10,000 to upkeep. It's not really that much, but I think I'm going to hold on a little bit. I'm going to continue zoning, get a little bit more money, get a lot more taxpayers, and then I can start putting those types of services. Speaking of taxpayers and taxes, another thing that I can do is actually raise the taxes by one level. It's not a lot, but it will help us to be in the green. Another thing that I need to worry about is walkability. At the moment, this city has a pretty straightforward road connection. People can go and travel between their homes and their jobs at the industry very easily by car, and they can also, you know, go by foot because they have sidewalks on this avenue. But I want to give them other options of going to work by walking, and for that I think I'm gonna do a pathway network, so I'm gonna start working on that. But basically I want to make it easier for people to travel between places by walking, and not only between the industry and their homes. So for example, over here, someone who lives in this house, for example, in order to go to this side of the city, they would have to walk all the way to this road, then cross at this junction just to go to this area, which is quite a bit unnecessary since the distance is super short. So one of the ways that we can address this and make it easier for people to travel is simply by making a very direct pathway connection over here, like this, and then connect to this particular road. Okay, perfect. So that's one thing. And there are other areas within this district that could need dedicated pathways, but I think that was the most obvious for me. We also need to connect it to this layout as well, perhaps. And connect it here to this road. And hopefully I won't disrupt the roundabout. There we go. So these were the most obvious situations, but of course we also need to connect and add an additional pathway to this layout. And I think I'm going to extend the pathway network from this road. So perhaps over here, like this. Now we can make a loop. Now we can either make a tunnel or a bridge, like an overpass. What's the minimum elevation that I can use to cross this highway? 5 doesn't look good. 6.25 doesn't look good either. It's 7.5. That way I can have a perfectly horizontal bridge. So perhaps I can make a curve here. And yeah, I think that works. That doesn't look bad at all. Actually, now that I think about it, this could have been much simpler. Instead of doing all of these curves here, I could have just continued here, go on top of the highway, right about over here, and then curve, and then connect over there. I think that's much simpler, and it will look less weird than what it is right now. Okay, so I think this is much better. It's much more direct and straightforward, and I actually think it looks better than what I had previously built. And now I have two junctions that connect this end of the layout to both ends of the industrial district, and perhaps I can make another pathway connecting from this layout over here, this roundabout, over here as well. Okay, that works for me. We are also starting to have some demand for medium density, so I think I'm gonna alternate some medium density housing in this avenue alongside the commercial. So I'm gonna grab the apartment buildings, NA, and I'm gonna perhaps make one here and add another one there. It's creating, I don't want two equal ones right next to one another because the variety of assets in this game is super limited. So I think I'm gonna zone this thing and force a different size apartment over here. Yeah, that's cool. And perhaps another shop here. And let's add an European one over here, I suppose. And over here as well. Okay, let's watch it develop. And on this particular block, I think I'm gonna convert this to row housing, just to give it a bit more density next to the avenues. As a general rule, usually the high access areas, namely the avenues, tend to have the higher density, and then outside or farther away from the avenues, namely these areas over here, on the outskirts tend to be lower density. So I think that's gonna replicate what you see in most cities and create a somewhat realistic effect. Alright, so I want to move on and start incorporating key services into the city, namely medical clinics, because we have some people complaining about it already, and also the elementary school and police station, which are, essential services. But for that, we need to get into the positives. At the moment, we're losing a bunch of money, and if I start putting those services, we are gonna have a problem. So, first and foremost, this cemetery is costing us about 6,000 a month, so I think I'm gonna shut it down for the time being, and I'm gonna enable it when we have a significant amount of hearses icons spread throughout the city. I think I'm gonna manage it this way. You see, I've turned it off, and immediately we're in the green already. I can also, decrease the budget for this particular type of service, but regardless of that, I think we can keep this thing deactivated for the time being. Other than that, the most obvious step right now is to keep increasing our population and add more taxpayers into the city so that we have a substantially higher income. But for that, unfortunately, I cannot just start putting any more houses, even though we have the demand, because if I go into the population tab, we can see that our unemployment rate is at 20% at the moment. So if I add more houses, specifically mid-density housing, I will have a lot of people complaining and out of jobs. So I think we need to go back to the industrial district. I think we can develop it a little bit more. I'm gonna buy some adjacent tiles, and I'm gonna add a few more factories. I don't want to go overboard with this because, as I've mentioned, I don't want to make this district too big, because the city is downwind from the industrial site, and I don't want the citizens complaining about pollution, even though these buildings don't generate a lot of pollution. But just to be safe, I don't want to concentrate a lot of factories here. But yeah, I'm gonna do that, and I will meet you guys in a moment. Okay, so I've just extended the industrial layout. I think it looks very good, very in line with what we had so far. I've extended the avenue to this direction. I believe I'm gonna add another highway connection at about over here to add another access point to the industrial site. And we still have a lot more room for zoning, so this layout is still gonna hold out for a little while longer. On this side of the city, I've also developed the zoning in this area, and as you can see, our population pretty much doubled. I have converted this entire section into row housing. I think it looks pretty cool. It's a very particular section for the city. And our budget is now in the greens, and we are making about almost 70,000. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to start placing the services that the city is requiring. namely a medical clinic, which is the one that we need the most, and I believe that's the one people are complaining the most as well. So yeah, there we go, -4 points on that. Oh, and by the way, by zoning all of that industry, we have decreased our unemployment from 20% to 3.2%. So we're pretty much managed at this point. We are doing very well so far. But yeah, moving on to the essential services, a medical clinic. Small medical clinic costs about 5,000 to 20,000 a month. That's a bit much. Let me see the budget here. It's all the way to 50% already, so I believe that's the best we can get is 5,000 per month. And I'm gonna go with the small one. We don't need a larger one for the time being. And I think I'm gonna put it on this curve. I think this is where it looks the best. So I believe maybe here. Okay, there we go. It's a dedicated street just for the medical clinic. Now we should start seeing the ambulances going to pick up the sick people. Yeah, there we go. And with the minimum budget, we have 3 available vehicles, which I think is gonna be enough for the time being. It will have to do. Now the next service that I want to put is an elementary school. The smallest one costs about 5,000 per month and has a student capacity of 400. And at the moment we have 189 eligible students. So I could potentially hold out a little bit more if I want to be 100% efficient, but I think this is one of the services that I feel you should put on as early as possible because education takes a long time to build. Let me go to the budget once again. I'm going on education, set the budget all the way down to 50%. And now the upkeep of the elementary school is going to be 2,500 per month, which I think it's okay. And I'm going to place it in this square. I will have to remove a little bit of the commercial, but that's fine. And I believe I still have room for an expansion. And I think, where would I want to put this? Probably around here. Yeah, I think this would be a good place for it. Perhaps we can even add a pathway just to mark that area. I'm gonna put it right away. I think this was it. Yeah, there we go. I'm also gonna set some sidewalks over here, and hopefully that won't mess the zoning. Yeah, there we go, perfect. So I'm not gonna upgrade the elementary school at this point because I don't need the extra student capacity, but I have the layout reserved for this when the time comes. Let me take a look at my budget. We're still on a profit of 40,000, so I think we can put... We're already at a building that burned down, so a fire station could be adequate, but we are also starting to have some issues with crime, so I think I'm gonna go for the police station, which costs about 15,000 per month. The firehouse is a bit cheaper. Perhaps we can even put both, perhaps. Let me see, let me set the budget of both to 50%. Now the small police station is 7,500, which I think is doable. And I'm gonna put it, I think I'm gonna put it on this square. I'm gonna put it right here. Okay, and we should start seeing some police vehicles. What's the size of this? Oh, this one cannot be upgraded. Okay, that's fine. And finally, I'm gonna put my firehouse, which is 5,000 per month. And this one I think I'm gonna put next to the industrial site. I think this area is much more prone to fires, at least realistically speaking, as the fire hazard it tends to be much higher in these areas, at least in real life. And I think I'm gonna put it, I don't know, let me look for a good area for it. Perhaps I'm gonna put it on the avenue, right here in the corner. Okay, can you upgrade it? Yes, we can. Not really sure if I want the factory to be right there. Perhaps I'm gonna adjust this a bit better. I'm gonna remove the zoning here, and then I'm gonna let the factory be built here so it kind of blends better with the firehouse. Before wrapping this video, there's something that I want to do before I forget, which is go into the road services on the development tab and unlock the advanced road services. So let's unlock this, because I want to start upgrading some roads with these things, the grass and also the trees on the side. And I think, as you've probably noticed already, I'm tending to leave a gap between some streets and housing. And I think these are the streets that I want to convert and put some grass on the side. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Perhaps I can start on this side. And let's see, this entire street can have grass lanes. And this one as well. So all the way here. That also removes parking on the side, which is something that I do not want to do for every single street, but it helps to make some streets a little bit better looking than if they were filled with cars. So this one as well, perhaps I can upgrade all the streets already and then just put the trees later on. This one is also a very good street for it, so I think I'm going to put it just on this side, because I think I want to zone on this side of the road. This one on this side. Yeah, this entire street can be on this side only. This one will be on both. Okay, so I've just upgraded all of the streets that I wanted with grass lanes and also trees on the side. And the city seems to be a bit better when it comes to health issues. Of course, we need to wait a little bit until that all of the icons dissipate. When it comes to budget, I'm making about 5,000, which is not a lot, but I also think people are now a bit happier and there's a higher chance for them to upgrade, which will gives us, of course, a higher tax income. But the next step would be, of course, to continue to develop the layout. Perhaps we can move forward to this side. We have some blocks to fill as well. I also want to decorate this area on the shoreline a bit further. Perhaps we can put a signature building on this end over here and make perhaps a coastal park that goes alongside the coastal area. I think that would look cool. Perhaps add some piers, etc. As for the layout itself, as you can see, I've tried to put my commercial on the avenue, even though I also tend to sprinkle some spots of commercial on key locations, because I want people to have a shop or a place to eat no matter where they live. No matter where they live, they should be able to walk to a nearby restaurant or grocery store. And now that I think about it, I think we should put some small shops over here as well. So I'm gonna put some shops here. Okay. I also think we already have some people using the pathways to go to work. Yeah, there we go. We have a couple of people using the pathway on this side of the layout. And for this one, oh, this one is already being populated by a lot of people, which is great. It's very nice to see people using our creations. I think this area needs a sidewalk now that I think about it. There we go. I'm not really sure about the high density or medium density buildings next to the avenue. I like having the buildings right alongside these main access points, but I'm not really sure if I'm not going to need to upgrade these to a 6th lane further on, so I'm not sure I want to commit to that. Perhaps I can move the mid-density to this layout over here. I don't know, I need to think about it. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. There's just one more thing that I want to do, which is name this city. And I've already picked a name for it. I am going to call this city Leonor. That's going to be and the name of the city moving forward. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section down below, and I will meet you in the next one. Until then, take care.